Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of the GPP Season 2, Episode 26. Last week was Episode 25. It was our quarter quell. I encouraged you all figuratively to commit violence upon each other, and that got us seriously downvoted. So we are not going to talk about that. This is going to be a happy episode. This is going to be an all positive. Everyone can watch this. If you're 12 years old, you can watch this. If you're 80 years old, you can watch this. No algorithmic anger towards the podcast this week. You'll also notice that I actually have a guest this time. It's not me just sitting here. You guys know how I feel about guests on the podcast. Usually they ruin it. They take away from all the splendor that is yours truly. But Anthony here is someone who has been on the show before, and we're going to talk about all things bodybuilding prep from his holy shit, what year is it? 2020, is it 2024, right?
24.
Or 2024.
So it's been about 4 years.
Season. And everything that went into it. No memes and things, no ad roll, no AI songs, none of the usual segments. It's Anthony and yours truly chatting about bodybuilding. If that's not your style of content, why in the first place, stick around anyway. Bare minimum, at least give it a thumbs up, a like, and then send it to your friend. Tell them to watch it on 3 or 4 devices at once. Comment, reply to your comment, and then start commenting the things that you want to talk about. Anthony, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
Doing good, man. Starting this off season off, right?
I see that. I see that you were starting off with some legless rope climbs, with some jump rope. Do you see yourself getting back on a skateboard soon?
No. Hell no. Sorry. I know can't curse on here yet.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think I already said shit, so
yeah.
we're done. All right, we're
definitely
cooked.
not doing that.
That's how you hurt your knee, right?
Yes. It was a freak accident though.
Freak accident. See, the thing is, I'm a bodybuilder. I have very poor proprioception. I was 220 pounds, and I decided to take up skateboarding.
It was all your fault. You jinxed it.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
If I know anything, it is always my fault. Walk us through that skateboard accident. Bring us in with some light humor here. What happened?
First of all, I have been skateboarding since I was about 4 years old. So first sport. I was just trying to get back on. I wasn't doing anything crazy, just riding around. I tried a couple kick flips. I was like, you know what, let me try one more. Let me do one more right before I go inside. And I landed on the tail. The nose hit me in the side of the knee. I have 2 previous ACL surgeries. For a surgery, they cut a piece of my patellar tendon to repair the ACL. And that skateboard hit me so hard, pretty much like I got whacked by a 2x4 on the side of the knee, that it shifted my kneecap, popped my patellar tendon. So that's what happened.
You were patella. For some reason, I thought it was. Did you do MCL too?
MCL was my second knee surgery when I tore it in wrestling. Yeah.
Full rupture?
No, it was a sprain.
Partial.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you the story of my client who fully ruptured his patella?
Patellar tendon.
He was a police officer. He was doing his, every so many years they have to do the PT test again. So he was scaling over, and he was 40 pounds heavier because he was in a bodybuilding off season. Landed on the other side of the object, complete rupture of his patella. Thing just exploded.
Yeah.
That's why you sign up with a gifted coach, because his doctor said surgery, 8 months of recovery, but through nutrition and the wonderful use of supplements, we got him back going in about 4 months.
Yeah, my surgeon was like, yeah, you're 3 months ahead of schedule. How did you do that? Programming and nutrition. That's
believing in myself, saying my prayers, I take my vitamins, I do all that good stuff.
And mine ruptured right in the middle too, so it's not like they could just reattach it and screw it back in. They had to suture it back together, sew it back together, and then I don't know if they duct taped it together. I don't know what they did in there, but yeah.
When I was playing with some various supplements on the healing side of the world, I had some moles removed off my back, and they stitched it shut. And then by the time I went back to the doctor, the skin had completely healed over the stitches. My healing was so fast, it had healed all the way over the stitches. They had to then cut it back open and then get the stitches out and then butterfly bandage it from there.
And so before that surgery, I was in the hospital about a week before that.
What were you in the hospital for? I don't remember.
E. coli, 4 days. Yeah.
You ate
And then they
the
gave
bad
me some
Chipotle.
general antibiotic. They were like, they had them on IV antibiotics. They gave me some, I went home with some general antibiotic telling me that they needed to figure out what kind of strain of E. coli it was to figure out the antibiotic. And they gave me a very general antibiotic. So that was lovely.
They just threw on a little Z-Pack.
Yeah.
He'll probably be all right. He's a young, strapping lad. All right, let's talk bodybuilding season. That's what the people here are here to talk about. Brief synopsis of the season as a whole. I'll let you kind of walk through where we started. Obviously, we started around the first of the year, kind of walk through roughly what we did. We'll get into the finer details a little bit later, but, you know, just a rough overview of the season as a whole, where we started, what shows you hit, you know, where you ended up and where you're at now.
Yeah. So we started in like mid to end January. Did it was about a 20-week prep to the St. Pete Pro / Classic. So it's the first time they've had that show here in St. Pete. I saw that show pop up on my Instagram a couple months before that. I was like, hey, that's right here in my backyard. Why not do something right here at home? So kind of set a goal to be the first overall winner at that show. Try to make history, that kind of thing, you know, which, you know, probably no one's going to look back and care who won the overall in 15 years. But, you know, to me, it's a good goal. So, and I achieved it. So then, you know, we shot for USA's. The plan was to do that. Then USA's 4 weeks after, which was a good timeline. So 20 weeks to the first one, and then it was like 24 weeks to USA. So ending the prep at 6 months.
That's really not too bad. 24-week prep, start to finish, starting around the first of the year. And get all the holidays out of the way. Not a lot that you have to care about. And you get sexy through the summer. That's not a bad way to do it.
Lots of tanning. And guess what? It's definitely better than a 9-month prep that we did in like 2020. So through COVID.
Yeah, the 9-month preps.
Yeah.
I think we talk about this a lot. You and I have talked about this a lot. Like the fitness industry, bodybuilding, strength training, whatever it is like that pendulum swing where it's like when I first started bodybuilding, I was like, you did a 12-week prep, 12-week prep, you were done. And then it swung when you and I first started working together, it swung all the way in the opposite direction. It was like, no, you need like 34, 36, 40 weeks for a prep. Take it nice and slow. And, you know, I think it's kind of suiting that your best prep to date landed right in the middle around that 20 to 24 week range. I think that leaves you enough time for some weeks that kind of get fucked up, gives you enough time for some pushes, some pullback, hit multiple shows in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we had just enough time between shows to make actually huge improvements between the two shows. So in conditioning.
Yeah. And I think the looks at each show were exactly what they needed to be. At a local show, you can get away with being a little bit less conditioned. You can be a little bit more dominant with just muscularity and size as a whole. Yeah. And then at the national level, you can't bring that size if it's not also conditioned. So push a little bit more of the conditioning, be a little bit more aggressive with the filling out, and boom, voila, it all worked out. All right, let's take our foot off the gas here for a second. Let's jump in the time machine. Let's take time, or let's talk about your time away from the stage, because I believe your last show was before this season was 2020?
December 2021.
December of 2020. Which show was that?
Nationals.
Oh, Nationals. Yep.
Yeah. That's
so you finished. Where did you finish there? The third call out?
Yeah, it was like my worst placing ever. And
worst placing ever.
Yeah, that was out of 32 people. I think I got 16th. Yeah,
it's not horrible.
It's not horrible, but it's the worst placing I've ever gotten. So and so and especially when you've
tell me, coming out of that show, where was your head at? Like, what were you thinking? How were you feeling about bodybuilding, about yourself as an athlete, all of that?
Kind of the same that I've always, I've gotten 6th and 7th in national shows before too, with stacked lineups.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of the same. It was just like, well, I guess back to the drawing board, got to improve a shit ton. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, for my height, I probably need to jump up a weight class and gain as much muscle as I possibly can to fit in that weight class. Obviously we tried and ended up having a surgery in that off season too, but didn't need to go up a whole weight class to do that. I just needed to kind of be the top of my weight class. And I was kind of at the bottom of my weight class in 2021. So where I could have been a welterweight, and instead I was a middleweight. I went to middleweight. So when we carved up too, we saw that I was improving and looking better. So we just went with wherever I looked best, and that was at middleweight. And but that was also very, very hard prep. I remember doing like hours of cardio, and just like fat was not coming off.
There was just
a
ton of resistance. I agree.
Yeah, no, but at the end of that prep, I was like, okay, like I need a break for a while, and this is a good opportunity for me to just put on a bunch of size. And so we tried to do that. We did a push phase, and then health phase, push phase, then took a break, hurt my knee, kind of just maintained, focused on upper body for a while, and then when I got back to light training, like everything kind of came back pretty quickly. So then we did another push phase again. So that was like pretty much 3 years complete off season. So
3 years completely removed from the sport in terms of competitive. And I know that's tough for a lot of people to do. I think people get the idea that competitors are on stage a lot, are prepping a lot because they feel like they have to be on stage. They feel like they have to get on stage more often. And that's what people are doing it. But I think there's a second side of that people don't really realize it when they're on the outside looking in, which is like when you're in an extended off season, when you're not getting on that stage, when you're not seeing your physique, lean like it looks like on stage, you almost feel disconnected from the sport. You almost feel like I'm not really a bodybuilder right now. And I know that can take a mental toll on you. So did you ever feel like that?
Yeah, honestly. And I think kind of lost a little bit of a drive, like never felt loss of drive going to the gym or loss of motivation. Always felt like fun with training pushing my training and stuff like that. And, diet, like honestly, like that was easy for me. I would just make my meal prep. I coach wrestling, so I would bring all my meals to tournaments and stuff. All that stuff was really easy. And then when we started, pushing weight up or supplements or anything like that, like I was still very locked in, but it kind of started to impact the rest of my life, where it was the like not having any drive for anything else. And I was just, bodybuilding is just like, it's kind of like a tedious thing. It's just monotonous. You just wake up, you're like a robot. You do the same things every single day, and I was still able to fit in balance a lot of events and hang out with family and stuff like that. So that stuff didn't bodybuilding didn't deter me from being able to do those things. I was still able to very much do all that stuff, balance stuff, but it's almost like bodybuilding is such a monotonous thing that you don't even think about. You don't even think about it anymore. It just becomes like, I don't know, it's just natural. And, but it started to kind of like that loss of drive started dipping into other parts of my life, like loss of drive for like work, like maintaining like a healthy relationship, that kind of stuff. It's almost like you get in like a very comfortable spot, and you get comfortable and you almost have like no desire to like strive for more. And I think it's kind of important to have some, I guess struggling, in a way is important to kind of like push forward, have something that has you pushing forward and like a goal, striving for something, So when you get in this comfortable situation, it's like you have no drive for really anything else in your life and putting in efforts in those things. When bodybuilding was just so easy to me, so just like it wasn't really an effort there, having to put much effort into that. It was just the other parts of my life, and that definitely took a toll on the mental health, and relationships, family, finances, and so and when that happens, it's like to pull yourself out of that, it's going to take a while. And there's sometimes you have to hear it from someone else. Sometimes you might have to do therapy. You might have to get another perspective or point of view, and you might not want to hear it, or you kind of are in denial about it for a while. But when you realize that the the point where you want to get to, that you want to be as like a person, or I want to be a pro bodybuilder, that those kinds of things, it slows you down to get to those points too, because nothing else in your life is kind of like on point. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. It's just, it's kind of like when everything else is not going well, mental health is kind of like in the dumps. It's like taking you away from the person you're meant to be, the person you're trying to become. And, and then at some point it's like, you have to come to the realization that, okay, I need to change these things, put some effort into these things, do the inner work. And then that's going to get me back on track to the person that I want to be, or that pro bodybuilder status, or whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. So
looking at contest prep just as kind of an abstract, as an overall, I think it's something that a lot of people, especially the first couple of times they do it, it's all consuming. It's everything that they do, and it becomes this central focus for them, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The best way to have a very successful contest prep is to take that mentality, is to let those around you know, hey, listen, for the next 12 to 16 weeks, whatever it ends up being, I've got this central focus in my life, and it's something that's very important to me. And it's going to take a lot of my time and a lot of my mental energy, and that's fine. But I think people struggle to transition out of that mindset when it's over. Mm-hmm. And then they find themselves drifting with no real kind of central driving purpose. I hear people that compete and they coach, they say it all the time. It's like, I never get more clients and I'm never more productive with my work than when I'm prepping. And part of that is that you look good and it's easy to market yourself. But another part of that is that you're just laser focused on the task at hand. You're stuck in this mentality of being very methodical, robot-like you said, and getting shit done. And that bleeds over into your work. It bleeds over into your relationships and all of that. I think people, when people exit a contest prep, they take an extended period away from the stage as a whole. They don't take that same laser-like focus and redirect it. I think one of the reasons that you have been so successful long-term in bodybuilding is that you're not a fucking loser. Bodybuilding isn't the entirety of your life. You have wrestling, you have, your relationships, your friends, you have your dogs, you have your cat, you have things that you do outside of the sport. I very, very much worry when a young client comes to me and says, my goal is to win my pro card. I'll do anything it takes. Bodybuilding is going to be my entire life. Congrats. You've got about 2 years in the sport. And you're going to find yourself tired of bodybuilding with no fucking friends on the other end of it. And I don't think, in my opinion, that ever was you. I think you always had outside focus. Did you have some struggles with other things in your life, outside parts of your life? For sure. But I don't think that I ever saw you as someone who shut those things completely out.
Yeah, I think this prep, it's not that I haven't been able to balance things before, but this prep was definitely more like, I don't know, I think it's a whole like identity thing. Like people I'm a bodybuilder. That's what I do. That's my identity. It's not your identity. It's like, it's part of what it makes you, like, it's part of what makes you who you are, but it's not your whole entire identity. You have, how did you grow up? You have people around you, like other hobbies, things like that. So it's like, you kind of have to balance out and kind of make time, and almost like a schedule, like even with a work schedule, you have 9 to 5, after 5, my brain is shut off from work. You have to shut your mind off from bodybuilding too, or else anxiety drives up. And like, we can probably talk about that later at some point, like your anxiety gets driven up because you're just super hyper focused on bodybuilding only. And like the goal of having to win, you have to win, and so, and that kind of like will eat at the other things in your life. And like you said, at the end of the day, like what happens when you're done with bodybuilding? You have to have something else.
Hobby is a good word for it. When I was a kid, I really liked to make model airplanes, but I wasn't a fucking engineer. When I was a kid, I liked to watch Dragon Ball Z, but I wasn't a Super Saiyan. It's perfectly fine to have this thing as a hobby. And then when you're done with that hobby, or you put that hobby away for a little bit, you're just back to your normal person, your family, you have your friends, you have your social life, all of that. You don't have to be this. And maybe it was maybe it was like the 90s, early 2000s era of bodybuilding, where like every bodybuilding DVD that you bought, the Dorian Yates, the Frank McGrath, the Evan Centopani's, those old animal DVDs that we all grew up watching, was like these guys like living in these like dark, dreary apartments, and they would, take the train to the gym, and it was raining, and then they would go home and they would just eat their fish, and then they would go to bed. And it was like the era of bodybuilding that we grew up on is very different than the era that we're growing up with now. I think bodybuilders, as much as we don't like the TikTok era of bodybuilding, bodybuilders now more than ever are showing that they have social lives, that they have lives outside of just, the Kai Green apartment.
Well, one thing, like, and I feel like, okay, bodybuilding is an individual sport, but not really. So I grew up wrestling, and wrestling, we were always told it's an individual sport. It's only you and your opponent out there. You can only blame yourself when you lose and things like that, right? So I brought that mentality into bodybuilding with me. So I isolated myself a lot of the times, and I made it like a me thing. This is on me. When really, like this prep, I learned a lot. It's really, it's not an individual sport. You have to lean into your support group and the people that believe in you. And I've never had this much support and made new friends, new connections and stuff, through this prep. And, I never felt like I've had this much support where I felt like, okay, this is not an individual sport. Like this support means a lot to me. It's actually making me want to go harder or push harder, or, make sure that I stay on task and stuff, because, I feel like when people do things just for themselves, like, oh, I'm competing for myself, that's great. I mean, that's great, but your reason for doing things and reason for staying in it becomes a whole lot like greater push towards it when you're doing it for more than yourself. And it's not for doing it because, just to make everyone else happy, but it's still for you. But, when you're at the end of the day, your goals in the end of life of like family and like your legacy and how people see you is going to be, based on how you treated other people, how you saw or, talked to other people while you were prepping, and like included other people in it instead of like pushing them away. So
we're humans. We're social creatures. I made a post about this the other day. Someone asked me at the last competition I did why I compete in teams instead of individual in CrossFit. And I didn't even think about it in the moment. I just said, after 10 years of bodybuilding, or however long I was bodybuilding, I was like, I was just tired of being alone. But even looking back on that, it was like, I didn't have to be alone. It was a mindset that I put myself in where the same thing that you said, it was all about me. It had to be about me. My failures were mine. My successes were mine alone. It doesn't have to be that way. No. You can share this thing, this passion of yours, this hobby of yours with as many people as you would like. And it makes more sense, and it brings more enjoyment if you bring along as many people as possible. And that thing, that's the same with anything in life. Bodybuilding, competitive sport, whatever it is, financially, socially, your friends, your love life. The goal in life is to bring as many people with you as you can.
Yeah. And there's times where like, and being a competitive athlete, especially in an individual sport, it's like you're kind of, sometimes you doubt yourself. And sometimes having those supporters are there to remind you that you shouldn't doubt yourself. Like, you are exactly where you need to be. You are doing exactly what you need to do. And you should trust and be confident in yourself that you're going to win or whatever your goal is. And it's important to have those people around, because when you start to doubt yourself and you're alone, like it just gets worse and worse. And you just start getting into your head more, and that anxiety just starts to drive up. And I coach wrestlers, and they said, they asked me years ago, Coach, how do you deal with not looking at, your opponents who you're going to wrestle the next day, who you're going to wrestle the next match? And it's like, dude, I still deal with that to this day of who I'm going to be competing against, looking at them, looking at their Instagram, social media, this and that, looking at people backstage. And this prep was a whole lot different, because, and I've done national shows before where it's a big show. It's highly competitive, and the days before, that anxiety just started to drive up. And that's where this prep was just very different from those other preps.
bodybuilding needs what CrossFit has, because when I go into a competition, I'm just looking everyone up on the open leaderboard and I can see exactly how fit they are relative to me in live time, and I can just type in names for hours at a time. And I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was my mom or someone at the last competition that we were at. I was like, I don't think a lot of competitors do that. I think everybody does that. Every bodybuilder is all like NPC, IFBB, St. Pete Pro, their story views at 2 weeks out probably 10x from all the competitors just being on there every day. Just like, is she in bikini? Is she in bikini? Is that girl in figure? Is that going to be in men's physique? Is he going to be in how tall does he look? Well, he's standing next to, a Nissan Altima, and those are, 4'8". He looks like he's 8 inches taller. People are just going crazy. But like you said, that's, it's driven by anxiety, and anxiety is fear of the unknown, your own preparation going into the show. You should be 100% confident. You should know what your preparation is, and you should be confident with that regardless of how it stacks up with the competition. Like I told you all season, bring your best. If someone beats you, bless their heart. We'll shake their hand, and we'll be better than them next year.
I mean, and I've done it 3 other times where I've lost in a national show or didn't get the placing that I wanted. And like, you just go right back to the drawing board. And it's like, all that looking at that social media did nothing for you, because it drove decisions that didn't need to be made. It drove anxiety up, stress, cortisol levels. And looking at it after the show, post show, you're like, I didn't need to do all that, because I would have done it either a whole lot better if I would have just been off of social media, stayed in my own lane, gone out there with a better stage presence, because you're more confident. You walk out there more confident. So, but
some people beat them. So many people beat themselves. Some people lose before they even go out there.
And I think that was something that I struggled with in national shows, like my whole life, pretty much. Even in wrestling, still, I suffered from that, just my own anxiety, not being, and I still didn't sleep the night before USA's, but it was a different reason. It wasn't because of fear or nervousness. Steve also. But it wasn't because of nervousness or like fear. It was more like excitement. It was like, dude, I cannot wait to step on stage. That was a whole different feeling, from this national show to my past national shows, backstage and the night before. Like, that loss of sleep was a completely different reason.
Taking it back a couple minutes ago, you mentioned, not being a solo sport, not being an individual sport, having a support staff. During the off season, you kind of had a big shift in your life in terms of your support staff and details around that I know you want to discuss in terms of how it affected your prep, and some takeaways for individuals who may also have very, very large overhauls in their life, what their life looks like, and how to overcome that and stay on track with what your goals, and stay tuned in, checked in with your passions.
So between right before 2021 nationals, I had gotten married at the beginning of the year, and my relationship was very revolved around bodybuilding at the beginning. Not to say there wasn't other things in common, but I think when it comes to relationships, it's important that you have other things in common other than bodybuilding. Social life, views on that social life, culture is very important. So not to say that two people from different cultures can't be together, but it's just, it does.
Whoa, Anthony, whoa. Keep the relationships pure. This guy doesn't want any crossbreeding here.
No, I just mean, like, it's different when you grow up in a certain culture and you're used to certain like social aspects, social settings, and then you get married, and then it changes a little bit. So, and it just, you're not used to it, or the other person's not used to it, or not used to your family or your culture or how you like to do things. And I think I kind of shut my real self down a little bit when I was between like 2019 through like 2021, because I did kind of like overconsume myself with bodybuilding a little bit, and I kind of made my relationship a little bit more overconsumed with bodybuilding and who I was dating at that time and stuff. So, but yeah, I think when it comes to relationships, just having other things in common, and not to say you can't both compete, but find some other things that you have in common, find some other hobbies and kind of make that the focal point instead of bodybuilding. But yeah, so I did, let's see, this 2023, December, like January coming into this year, like I did move out. I was separated, ended up getting divorced in like March. And I hadn't moved out around the same time into a new apartment. So, that was a lot to handle in a prep, but I mean, that didn't like stop me from going to the gym or getting my meals in and that kind of stuff. I didn't go off plan at all. So, that was a big life change for sure. But I think when I don't know, it's very different because of the way I grew up with wrestling too. Like when you have that goal, you're in a prep, like you're locked in. It's almost like such a priority that other things like big life changes, like getting a new job, moving, a new relationship, or breakups, things like that. It just doesn't let me waver. Like it doesn't let me like fold from my goals. It just does, for some reason, like my priority is my priority. It's not going to change no matter what happens around me. And I think that's an important kind of like characteristic to have as a bodybuilder, or any athlete in general. Things are going to happen around you, and you have to be able to kind of like roll with the punches and just keep going. And so, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that, and not to say that it's an excuse or anything. I'm sure people have new jobs or breakups in new relationships and stuff, or they move away, financial reasons, they may have to stop prep. But when there's a will, there's a way, right? So I think if you really want it bad enough and it's your priority, you will make it happen no matter what. And so whether it's a breakup or moving or, you're still going to make it happen. You're not going to fold. So, big life changes. I think you just have to learn that they're going to happen, and you can't let your priorities go because of it.
When I see clients, not necessarily bodybuilding prep, but I guess sometimes it does happen. But when I see people, push their short-term goals to the side because of a very large life change like that, I often see them 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, more lost than they were ever to begin with.
Yeah.
Because whether it be bodybuilding, training, nutrition, whatever it is, just physical fitness as a whole, that's kind of a fixating point in your life. It's this central point that you come back to when everything else in your life is chaos. Everything around you is going horribly, but you've got this central fixating point, this one thing that is part of your routine that brings you back. It gives you at least an hour of your day where your brain is at peace. You're not thinking about all the other bad things in your life. And it gives you this 30, 60, 90, whatever it is, minute period post where you can finally think clearly, where you've been removed from the chaos for an hour, 2 hours. You've been able to clear your mind for a bit, and you can finally start thinking straight. When people remove that central thing from their life, their entire day becomes chaos. And it's wake up in the morning, anxious, how am I going to get through the day? 12 hours, usually some form of sedation, whether that's smoking marijuana or getting drunk at night, even worse, using sleeping pills, painkillers, things like that to numb the pain, go to bed, wake up, do it again. There's no point of clarity in that where you can actually move through your point. So your central fixating point was a bodybuilding prep. You weren't going to quit that because it's what allowed you to feel like you were still connected and rooted with the day-to-day and solve those problems. Had you given it up, I can't say for sure. I think there probably would have been some spiraling going on in your life.
Yeah. And as a coach too, because I see it all the time as a coach, that people will quit a prep, and not just from like financial, and there's reasons to quit a prep. I'm not saying there's not, but
you have to start an 11th month health phase.
Yeah. At $600 a month. And it's just, I feel like it kind of frustrates me for them, because I'm like, this is what's going to make you a better athlete, is being able to stay, keep doing this while everything else is going on. And you'll be able to say, look, despite everything going on, I still did it. And that's what's going to help you mentally, I guess, mental toughness, like be able to get through everything else in life. And I think, you can use those things and I think wrestling is a huge metaphor for life, with how much you have to overcome with losing and, hard practices and hunger and things like that. But I think bodybuilding is still a good metaphor for life too, where you're just having to go through obstacles to get through life, and just kind of keep going and not let things kind of break you down. And even if you do get broken down, just stand back up and keep going. So I just kind of frustrates me as a coach to see that, because I know that this person has potential and they're kind of stopping because they see, something kind of getting in the way, an obstacle, and they're kind of quitting on themselves, and it's not helping them. It's only going to make them want to quit other things in life when it gets hard, so.
You're 100% right. It's a reinforcing behavior. And a lot of times the reason that people hire a coach is to get through those exact moments, is to have someone in your corner to sit down with you and compartmentalize your problems. Okay, you lost your job. Yes, that's not ideal for a bodybuilding prep. How are we going to move forward with this? I've had just as many conversations with my clients about, how are we going to go make up with your girlfriend? How are you going to go find a new job? How are you going to be able to, overcome your dog just died and you guys have been best friends for 12 years. How are we going to work through that and still stay on track?
Yeah.
It's a life skill as much as it is a health and fitness behavior, right, or a bodybuilding prep behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So I think that brings us to kind of an overall perspective shift. Something that I would consider to be maturing of the athlete. You in particular, definitely your mindset and your perspective around competing. I think a lot of what I would consider to be your positive attitude around bodybuilding as a whole was rooted in success, was rooted in winning. I think back to a very bitter and very upset Anthony when you lost the Florida State Championships. I think about the text messages exchanges that we had post that, where it was a very good look for you. It was probably some of the best conditioning that you have ever brought to stage in your career. Obviously, you had significantly less muscle, but the end goal, the arbitrary end goal of the win, wasn't achieved. So there was kind of a negative attitude around that show as a whole. How has that shifted later in your career to kind of, roll with the punches a little bit better, keep that positive attitude?
I think it's almost like everything happens for a reason kind of thing, or it's like, I didn't win this because I wasn't supposed to. And obviously this can get into like spirituality and religion and all kinds of stuff, right? Which we don't have to get super deep into, but everyone has their own belief system. And, I think, whether it's just like the universe didn't allow it to happen because of this, or God didn't allow it to happen because of this, because it's supposed to happen. It's part of your plan. It's part of your path. And it's only going to, that didn't happen. Your goal didn't happen. It's only to make you better. It's only to make you stronger. It's only because, that wasn't the right timing for you. And I think even like the pro card thing, where it was like, okay, I've done my first national show 2018 where I expected to win, 2020 where I expected to win, 2021 where I expected to win, and it didn't happen, where it's like, I know it's going to happen at some point. Right now is just not my time. So I think, the losses kind of added up, kind of helped develop that attitude. And, I think this year my attitude going into nationals was very different, a lot more confidence, obviously, but at the same time, it wasn't like I have to win, because that also in the past drove up my anxiety. But this time it was more like, you know what, if I don't get it, I've failed before and I just kept going. So if I fail again, I'm just going to keep going until I get it. So there's nothing wrong if I lose or if I don't get don't get the pro card. So I think that was a shift in my attitude. It's very different from past national shows where my attitude was I have to win. And if I don't win, then it's like, throw your hands in the air, pissed off, that kind of stuff, upset. But I think, this time it was just more so like, if I don't win, I've lost before, and I've come back from losses. So I know that I can do it again. And that was kind of my attitude with my third knee surgery. Is that, there was a day that I couldn't walk up the stairs, and I was kind of like upset with myself. And I was like, you know what? I've been through this twice. I can do it again. And it's going to suck, but at the end of it, it's going to be okay. And it's just little step-by-step progress. And that's, with this year, just the attitude of being backstage too, very different attitude, even from show to show this year was different. From St. Pete to USA's was a different attitude that I had. And I get into my competitive little zone backstage, even at a local show where it's like, I'm so competitive that I don't talk. I'm in my zone. And I'm there to win. And at USA's, it was a lot more relaxed. It definitely helped having a teammate there, a teammate that I actually talked to, because at St. Pete, we were still competing together, but we never talked to each other. And we never met each other either. So, and we were both there to win. We were both there to compete against each other too. So, but having a teammate backstage was helpful. Kind of just like easier to kind of tone the competitiveness down a little bit, and enjoy the time being there. I think everyone gets so caught up with winning too. Before you step on stage, they're so like caught up in the winning that they forget to kind of just like take it all in and enjoy being backstage, enjoy that moment, that whole prep, kind of let that whole prep kind of come back to them like in memories, and think back to all the obstacles you had to overcome to be there. And what I like to tell people is, just before you get on stage, like, stop and smell the roses. And that's a Phil Heath thing. Like, he said that before. And it's definitely true. And this time it was more so like, I'm going to go out there confident and like happy to be out there and enjoy this time being on stage, because it's a privilege. And so that was definitely a big shift in my attitude versus other shows.
The stop and smell the roses thing is big. This is something that I see young kids, youngish, meaning like 21, 22, like the young kids that are racing, younger in terms of the industry, racing to their pro card. And they're getting their pro card in, classic physique or men's physique or one of the lighter bodybuilding categories. And they're in such a hurry to get their pro card, and they get it. And they don't even realize they haven't even taken that next step in their logic of, when's the next time you're going to get on stage?
Yeah.
You just got on stage at 162 pounds. Your weight cap for classic is 215 pounds. When's the next time you're going to get on stage and be even remotely competitive? 3 years? 4 years? And you're in a rush to get to this, what could be an end point for you? What could be the last show that you do for 4 or 5 years? You're going to rush to that. That makes me think that these people don't even enjoy it. They enjoy that single outcome of IFBB Pro, and they enjoyed nothing that led up to it. It's the hallmark of someone who's not going to last very long in the sport. Whereas the conversations that I had with you this year, the conversations that I had with Adam this year, both of you, before anything else, just stressed the fact that you love bodybuilding. Off season, in season, competing, 10 weeks out, 100 weeks out, doesn't matter. I enjoy prepping my food. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy training hard. I enjoy taking my vitamins. I enjoy all that goes into bodybuilding. It wasn't this arbitrary endpoint for me.
You have to fall in love with the process. That part alone, like, if competing wasn't a thing, if you took competing away from me, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to be training. I'm still going to be following a diet or taking vitamins, and because I love that lifestyle. If competing wasn't around, I still want to get as jacked as possible. So it's the same thing. And I think just like rushing to get on stage.
What a shame. What a shame. Because I look back on, I saw a podcast clip the other day. This guy was talking about he was just talking about like last moments in life. And he was talking about, he's like, one day I walked into Blockbuster and I rented a DVD, or I rented a VHS. And that was the last time that I ever walked into a Blockbuster because it no longer existed.
Yeah.
He's like, when I reach down and I grab my son, it could be the last time. He could be so big the next day that he doesn't want, I can't do it anymore, or he doesn't want me to anymore. People should treat their contest preps the same thing.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding is never going to be and has never been a sport that you do. It's not fucking golf. You don't do bodybuilding. You don't do enhanced bodybuilding when you're 75 years old.
Yeah.
You do it when you're young. You do it when you're 20 to 40. That's your window. If you're lucky to do it that long.
Yeah.
Enjoy every bit of it. Take every single picture that you can in the mirror when you look sick, when you have a huge pump. I look back on my bodybuilding career, which is very likely over, and I just wish that I could have savored every single moment. I spent so much time thinking about, oh, this sucks. Oh, this is hard. Oh, I don't feel so good. And I just wish that I had soaked it up a little bit more. I think my last season in 2019, I took a little bit of time to kind of realize that. And when I got on the stage, I enjoyed that last little bit of time up there. But I look back at my time before that, you know, the 2016, 2017, 2015 shows, and it was such a labor for me. And it took so much out of me, and it detracts from what in my mind, not in other people's mind, but it detracts so much in my mind from what a great sport bodybuilding is and how much bodybuilding gave me.
Yeah. You know, I was kind of thinking about this the other day, like, cause I'm already in off season, and, it's kind of like a little bit missing prep a little bit of those daily changes that you see of like, you grind, you have a couple low carb days. Holy shit, look at the changes that have happened over the past couple of days. That's awesome. And just seeing that progress. And I mean, I kind of missed that already. You know, and I'm in no rush to get back into prep, but I definitely see like where going back, like, okay, I could have enjoyed that day or those weeks a little bit more than I did. Not that it was a miserable prep, because honestly, it's like physically, this was the easiest prep by far. The last prep, 2021, I was doing cardio for hours, 50 grams of carbs per day, like weight wasn't moving, no fat loss. And this one was definitely the opposite. But mentally, obviously a lot more obstacles to overcome. But, you know, and going even like midway through this prep, I saw things happen in my life that I didn't think would happen, especially in a prep, because usually in prep things, it's like bad things. Like, you lost a job, your finances aren't as well because you're having to pay for this, and this. But it was like the opposite for me. I just like, I dug deep into faith and, you know, my belief system and stuff and support system. And I just saw things like skyrocket. I moved into a nice apartment. My finances doubled, you know, because, and I think it was one of those things too, where it's like, you know, you get divorced too, so it's hard financially, but you move into a situation where it's like, okay, now I have to make more money, but it just like, it's like that goal, that motivation to kind of go get it, kind of just happens, because it's like, you know, that you have to do this to continue prepping or to continue living. And so, it just came easy to it. It was just like more clients, you know, better quality clients, better attention to my clients too, because I was feeling passionate about it. I was feeling, oh man, this is like very rewarding too. Like this is happening, and now I'm starting to feel like the passion that I have for coaching and doing these things while I'm living this bodybuilding lifestyle. So it all kind of just worked out. And obviously it was like I said, physically it was easy, but, you know, mentally a lot of obstacles, and it just like, I feel like that was the way it was supposed to happen.
This is a conversation that I did have with Carrie probably every single week on our check-ins for 4 months straight. Carrie was really struggling with the job that she was working at, really hated it. The hours were horrible, but she was dead set in this mentality of, I will take an irreparable financial hit if I quit this job and I go all in on coaching.
Yeah.
And every week, I hate my job, in her email, then why don't you quit?
Yeah.
I hate my job. You should quit. You'll get more clients. What you find in life and what you found in life is that when you have to do it, when it has to happen, when there's no other way forward, there's no other path forward, you find that way.
Yeah.
We find that way by leaning into your faith like you did.
Yeah.
Even more importantly, you find a way by just going out there and making it happen.
Yeah.
Find more clients. You know, you found a great roommate to help you out on that side of things as well. You find a way. Life finds a way. And I find myself in these stressful situations all the time where it's like, how am I gonna make it through this one? This one is worse than anyone has been in the past. And what I always tell myself is, you didn't die last time. You're still here today. This one is no worse than that one was there. You'll find a way through this because you have to. You have to find a way. You have to push forward.
Yeah. One thing, even just kind of like between the St. Pete and the USA's show too, just like I was backstage and I kind of got like a second started to doubt myself again. And it just, I feel like as a competitor, it kind of just happens. Even if you're super positive all the time, like you always have like a little bit of that doubt.
Adam was coming for you.
You always have that, like in the back of your mind, it's like a little bit of doubt, and you have to block it. But if you let it creep in, like it can get worse and worse. But I started to kind of feel that creep back in again, that anxiety. And I just kind of told myself, like, you know what, like I've been leaning into my faith really hard and it's worked out so well for me. Why would it fail now? Why would it fail backstage right now on this stage? It's not going to. He hasn't failed me yet, or my faith hasn't failed me yet. It's not going to fail now. So I just need to lean into it more. So yeah, I just think, and I think even after prep, I dealt with some things that I felt the same way. And I kind of was like, you have to stop yourself, because in the moment you want to be like, why, God, why is this happening to me? Or, you know, kind of like a bad attitude or negative attitude. And you have to like flip this. You have to recognize it and flip the switch immediately. Just say, you know what? This is meant to happen. Something is good is going to come of it. Thank you, God, instead. And instead just kind of lean into whatever is happening and just be like, you know what? It's going to be okay. I'm going to figure it out. There's always a solution to the problem. So there were things that this prep helped me with even after my prep, where I started kind of like, what am I going to do? You know, as some things happened. And I was like, you know what? I just had to like change my attitude and kind of think back to how my attitude was in prep and continue that off season. And I feel like, kind of like you said too, like people like in prep, and, you know, they have a hard time with like continuing their, you know, efficiency with work or other things. And that was one of those things. It's like the attitude, that positive attitude that you had, don't let it slip now. Everything has been working out so well. Like just because something bad happens, you know, you need to just like keep the faith and just keep a positive attitude. You know, it doesn't stop from bad things happening. You just have to, again, use that to like roll with the punches and learn from it. So that it's a life lesson. It's a life skill. So it's not just for bodybuilding.
Something that I think is true about everyone, all human beings, is that as we exist, we are individuals, we are creatures who have voids in our life that have to be filled. I think some people fill those voids, competitors fill those voids with bodybuilding. They fill it with contest prep. Yeah. And you can fill a pretty large void with contest prep just because it takes so much of your mental energy and so much of like who you are on a day-to-day basis. And when you exit a contest prep, those voids have to be filled with something. And I think some people let those voids be filled with destructive behaviors. They go back to partying, smoking, drinking, living an unhealthy life. They let the gym slide. Whereas I see you filling those voids with, number one, your faith. I think that's something that you've leaned on even more after contest prep. But I see you filling the void with going back to coaching, going back to coaching wrestling, to giving back, to going back to something that you've enjoyed since you were a kid. Yeah. It's something that's been a big part of your life for as long as you can remember, and it'll fill a very, very large void in your life. So I encourage everyone, when you exit a contest prep, don't just drift. You have to find something else. have to find something else in your life to fill that with.
It's kind of funny. So I obviously, like, I had a crazy summer, and I was kind of away from wrestling from the club season. Like, wrestling season normally is November to March. And I got a text from the other wrestling coach. Hey, are you going to be joining us this season? Are you going to stay with us? And, and then when I first walked in there into the room for the first practice this year, the kids were kind of surprised that I was there. They knew that I had a crazy summer, and obviously they were happy for me, but they were like, we thought you weren't going to come back. And I'm like, why? Just because that I went pro, or I turned professional in bodybuilding, that I wasn't going to come back? This is what made me a professional bodybuilder. This is why I stay around wrestling. It keeps me sharp. And I think one thing to say too, just a big takeaway for bodybuilding and a lot of sports, like, in the grand scheme of life, bodybuilding doesn't really mean anything to the world except for you and your support group. But one thing that does mean something to the rest of the world, and what you can do, whether you're a winner or someone that got second place or not even IFBB pro, is how you impacted other people, and how other people see you, how you inspire other people. In this prep, I can say I've never had this much of support from other people that I don't even know, just random people on Instagram, things like that. And it inspires me a little bit more to, like, keep going. So knowing that I inspire others, it's like motivation for me. And I think it's another reason to just keep going and, like, keep striving for more, because you're inspiring other people and you're being a role model, leading by example, especially for my clients. And it's funny to me how similar some of my clients, like, journeys have been this year in their preps, even recently, that they were kind of having a similar prep to mine, whereas, like, they grew so much mentally from it. And I think that was really important, really key to showing others the way, is, like, lead by example, talk about it, be open about it. That, and knowing that I inspire other people, like, and I didn't know that. It's like a surprise to me that I inspired other people. I didn't know that, I didn't think anyone looked up to me, but I guess I did. And so to me, that's, like, motivating. It just makes me want to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing. So
some of the most burnt out people that I've ever met in my entire life are the ones that are so monetary focused and so robot-like in their dealings with other people that they just can't even separate themselves and have a genuine social interaction. I think it's something as coaches that we have to do. And this individual, the one individual I'm thinking of, he told me once that he really hated when his clients reached out to him for help with, like, marital issues or social issues or work issues. They were stressed out about their work situation, or they were stressed out because, they think that their wife is going to leave them or something like that. And this individual voiced this to me and was like, man, I just wish these people would understand that it's a financial transaction. You pay me, I provide you with a service, and that's where it ends. And it's like, man, that is a really, really good way to burn yourself out and never find any true satisfaction in life or in what you do on a day-to-day basis. Because from the start of my career until now, you included in that, some of my best friends that have been with me for over a decade now, are the ones that I met through coaching. They started as clients. It was a monetary transaction. It was a training program and a nutrition program. But I've worked with these people through divorces, deaths in their families, loss of loved ones, loss of jobs, loss of homes, everything. Working through that together, and that allowed us to be friends. So is there a monetary transaction? Yes. But how do I get the most satisfaction day to day and avoid myself burning out long term? So you have to have that social interaction, that I'm genuinely here to help you because I care about you. When you remove, and it sounds like, your wrestlers kind of thought that about you. It was like, okay, Anthony's big hotshot guy now, a pro bodybuilder, not going to see him anymore. But it's like, what keeps you pouring from a full cup is going out there and helping them. Is it a ton of money? No. Is it, some big improvement in your life? Is it going to bring you fame and notoriety or anything like that? Nope. It literally just recharges your mental battery, your burnout battery.
And one thing, even with my clients too, that it's like, like you're saying, you think it's just a monetary transaction, but I can help some of my clients better through their life situations better than probably any coach that I know, just because I've been through them. And it's not only have I been through those situations, but I've been through it as a competitor too. So not only do I compete in bodybuilding actively and go through these situations and learn how to navigate through these situations, I can help them navigate through it too, and still make it to their show, still be dedicated, still, be disciplined to not go off their plan, or, talk to them and communicate. And it's like, my clients have learned a lot through their preps too, recently, just how to kind of navigate through these things. And if it wasn't, and I'm not saying if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have gone through it, but I was able to help them navigate through it with my experience. And I think it takes a coach having gone through those experiences too, to be able to navigate you through those experiences, through your situations.
Now, with all that said, obviously this year, big takeaways, big lessons from prep as a whole. But when you answer this question, don't just think, 2024 prep season, St. Pete, Nationals, Pro Card, all of that. There was plenty that led into this season. With all that considered, 2022, 23, 24, biggest lessons and takeaways?
Definitely, especially with a long gap in off season too, enjoying that time on stage, stopping to smell the roses right before you get on stage every time you go to compete, every single time you go to compete. And also making new friends and connections with the people around you, because those are the people in that industry that you're going to be seeing for the next couple of years. And you do, 5 years down the road, you're going to be seeing them again somewhere, whether you're competing against them or just they're rooting for you at this point. I remember the guy that beat me in the 2018 overall at the Florida State Championships was there at the St. Pete watching me, rooting me on, was there to, congratulate me when I won my pro card, was there my first guest posing as a pro, like, someone that beat me years ago. You're going to be seeing those people over and over again in this industry, in probably the rest of your career. But taking your time with, the whole process, enjoying the process, taking the failures, the losses and stuff as a lesson instead of seeing it as a loss, using it to kind of like push you forward and like light a fire under your ass to kind of can't do it again and come back stronger, come back better, and obviously put your best efforts in. The biggest thing I would say, the biggest couple of things I would say, honestly though, are leaning into your support group instead of isolating yourself. This isn't an individual sport, it's a team sport. And then the other thing I would say is leaning into whatever belief system you have, whether that's God or the universe or whatever it is. And having that faith that you have in that belief system is going to kind of translate into faith in yourself, into doing these things. Faith in like achieving that goal that you set out for yourself, having 100% confidence in it. So leaning into those support and belief systems. And lastly, just remembering that, like I said before, bodybuilding in the grand scheme of like the world really doesn't mean much. So taking, the wins, losses as they come and kind of like using them to help other people, like bring other people up through your mistakes, your failures, and your wins. It's what you can do for other people, and kind of like using that as like a reason of your why. What is your why? Instead of it making it about yourself, making it something that's bigger than yourself. Because like I said before, just like in the grand scheme of bodybuilding, it doesn't really mean much to everyone else in the world except for you and your support group. So, but you can make, those accomplishments mean something and inspiring to other people. And you lead by example and kind of like set a standard for people that are coming up behind you.
I would say my biggest takeaway is that you and I, Anthony and Squad Dad, Quad Man, and the Squad Father himself, we are still them boys.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to imitate us. They want to try and be like us. When it comes down to it, can't swag like us, can't coach like us, can't dress like us, can't be sexy like us. Everyone else is an imitator. but they can never duplicate what you and I have been putting down since what, 2018,
2017. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Your average bodybuilder has had 9 coaches in
Yeah.
7 years. We just wrote it out. The good, the bad, the poor decisions, the good decisions, all of it along the way. Took it in stride, made it happen.
Yeah. We could kind of learn together through the years too. Like, I think, everyone's like jumps ship so fast to another coach, but it's like, you're going to have to start over again when you get to that new coach. And, with all of our national shows and even local shows that we won and stuff together, it's like we learned through every prep was different. Every peak was different. There's things that we implement now in preps that we didn't do before, or things that we probably won't implement ever again, like we did in their first couple preps. And there was things even in this prep,
long episode.
Yeah. And even in this prep, there was things like this USA's peak was my best peak ever. And no wonder it translated to a pro card, because our communication as a coach and a client were so on par, and our plan was so I guess so detailed, and we communicated so well with that plan. We talked beforehand, before that peak week, about what we were going to do. And, the rest of the St. Pete, I feel like coaches and clients, they're going to have disagreements. And I think when you kind of like shut down and don't communicate those things, like things can go wrong. You start taking things into your own hands, and, and it's all a learning experience. But I think what we did is that we came together and just kind of like, look, we've worked together for 7 years. We're going to finish this together, and we're going to put our brains together to finish this. And as an athlete, as a coach, you listen to my athlete feedback. And we communicated much better the second time around this year than we did the first time. And it obviously concluded into a better result. So communicating with your coaches is a huge takeaway too, as a athlete. And as a coach, I think also a takeaway could be listening to feedback from your athlete. But you go ahead, you can touch on that a little bit.
I just think it's such a valuable I think it's just a valuable skill to have in life. Yeah. Like, you and your boss at work are not going to agree on everything. Yeah. You and your significant other, you and your friends, you and every single person that you meet in your day-to-day life, you're not going to agree on everything. And if you can't be mature enough and adult enough to just take a step back and take 2 or 3 deep breaths, and instead of blurting out the first thing, try first to understand where the other person is coming from before you jump to saying, well, what you said offended me, or what you said wasn't nice, or what you said hurt my feelings. Try first to understand where the other person is coming from, and then adjust your response based on that. It's such a valuable skill. Coach, athlete, boss, worker, significant other. This is a valuable skill that you want to have in life. And if your first impulse, if my first impulse at St. Pete had been, oh, you did your prep, like you made some modifications to the plan along the way, well, you're a fucking retard. You're not my client anymore. Go fuck yourself. Go do nationals on your own. Not only would that have ruined the prep season as a whole, it would have ruined the 7 years that we had put into it. It would have ruined our friendship. But instead, we sat down like 2 grown adults. You said, here's where I'm coming from on this. I said, here's what I saw. And we said, here's the middle ground for that. And we used that middle ground to win that nice, shiny orange pro card behind you.
Yeah. Well, it's red, but I guess it looks a little orange probably from all the tan that I wiped on it. It's still got the tan marks.
Yeah, I would say that's my input on that. Is like communication, coach, bodybuilding, athlete, doesn't matter. Life in general. Just everyone wants to react. They want to be so reactive. They just don't want to take a second to think. Promise you. I mean, talk about faith, meditation. Like the classic definition of meditation is taking a second, stepping back, being with your thoughts, assessing what those thoughts are, what they mean, if they're rooted in reality, and then adjusting your behavior based on that. It's someone cutting you off in traffic and honking their horn at you, and you roll down your window, you flick them off, you tell them to go fuck themselves. Then you feel like an asshole after that. Instead, you stop, take a deep breath, roll down your window. Hey man, my fault. You go on with your day. You're not worried about that, for the next 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah. Tell you one thing from my experiences through all the stuff that I've been through this past couple years is that guilt you'll wake up with guilt. You can't even go to sleep with guilt. So if there's something kind of weighing on your heart, you need to like let it out, whether that's dipping into your faith or talking to whoever it is that you need to talk to about that thing, and kind of just like coming clean. And that's even what we did too at the end of St. Pete, is that I kind of was like, hey, this is what I did. And I felt 1,000 times better and 1,000 times more confident in you as my coach going into USA's, because I expressed my feelings. I expressed what I was kind of like feeling heavy about. So
with that, post-show, new goals. Wrap us up here. What's next for you? 10-year off season, add 80 pounds of muscle?
No, I mean, I'm hoping to step on stage next year. I'm not going to put a timeline on it. I'm just going to give this off season my best and see where I'm at come like March, April, then decide from there if I would like to do the Tampa Pro. But if I have to give myself a whole another year just to get there, I will, because I need to put on like 20 pounds of muscle. So, and that is very rare to do in a 1 year bodybuilding off season. So a 5-month, 6-month push phase might not do it, and I might need to take a whole another year, and that's fine. And I'm in no rush to get back to the stage. I'm not going to step on stage. I don't think I need to be 212 pounds to compete at the 212. I think I could be at 200 and be fine.
What percentage of 212 competitors compete at 212?
I have no idea.
Would you say more than 50 or less than 50?
I would say it's probably at 212 or like just under 212, like between 200 and 212,
like 210 to 212.
Oh, it probably like 30%, maybe 25%.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. And
how many do you think compete under 200?
I'm going to go ahead and say another 35 to 40%. And that's the thing that I do not want to be in that number. I don't want to be under 200. I see a lot of that. And, 195 is pretty close. 198 is pretty close, but I think if I could just be like between 198 and like 205 on stage at my pro debut, I think that's a good enough weight goal for me to compete and do well.
Here's a random question to finish, because after you left, it wasn't on Saturday at FitFest, it was on Sunday at FitFest.
Yeah.
One of the individual competitors, I think he like made it on the podium, and then he proposed to his girlfriend like on the floor at a CrossFit competition. What advice do you give to people who are like, at my next athletic endeavor, I'm going to propose to my significant other? Good idea, bad idea, or you do you and we won't judge?
You know what? I think if that's the one for you, if that's the person for you, go ahead and do it and take advantage of that moment too. Cause that's what I did, is like, it's a very rare moment to see that or to do that. Let's say you have both competitors winning that event and they're both getting engaged at that event after they win it. That's a very rare thing to happen. I think you should take advantage of it, but you need to make sure that that's the person for you. And if you're under 25, give it a couple more and so winning together maybe, and then think about it. But honestly,
think about doing it at a bodybuilding show, I don't think I've ever been more impulsive in my life than at the end of a bodybuilding show. I look at my closet today and I still have basketball jerseys, like retro expensive ass jerseys, and Jordans that I still need to get rid of to this day.
Impulsive buying too in prep is a real thing. Like shoes,
no one tells you about that.
That's another advice. Save your money. Don't go out to the mall. Just stay at home. Save your money, especially if you're struggling financially. Do not go buy stuff. To get off of Amazon too. But yeah, I think really for me, no regrets on like what's happened in my past. I think it was all like meant to happen, part of like my plan for me, and it makes me who I am now. So I definitely can't say that I regret any of it, but and I think some people just learn the hard way. I learned the hard way. So, if, you're that person and you go out and do what you feel is best in the moment, then do it.
the lessons that stick are often often learned most painfully.
Yeah.
I think that's everything I got.
That's all I got, man.
I wanted to ask that one. What are your questions, everybody? Ask the comments below. Maybe Anthony and I will make a regular segment of this. We'll come together. Yeah. We'll put our brains together, and we'll talk about all things bodybuilding prep and mentality that goes into it. Because a lot of people, they're not talking about that. It's grind until you're dead, and then your season's over, and then you don't like bodybuilding after a couple years. And it's a great sport, a transformative sport, a sport that if you do it right will make you a better person, guaranteed. But done the wrong way, chances are it'll make you a piece of shit.
Yeah. And then now I need a new trophy case because everything's falling off of it now. So
yeah, that shelf is being put to its limits.
Yeah,
how many you got up there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many?
It's funny because the
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you have swords up there?
Yeah, they're just laying down right now. They're not hung up. Yeah. So 2 swords. The overall for the St. Pete was a surfboard, a belt, and I got a ring. Oh, yeah. I have an ambassador award from that show up there too.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, we're not counting that as a bodybuilder
stick the hardest. you just looked at who shared stories the most, and he's like, Anthony wins.
It was like who talks the most shit about each other on social media. That was me and some other competitors going into that show.
In the history of bodybuilding, no one has ever made someone back down from their shit talking as fast as Anthony did. I've never seen someone go from like, I am going to win this entire show to I don't even think I want to be a bodybuilder anymore. It was like a 3-week transformation. Next Transformation Tuesday, that's what you post.
Yeah.
You post his messages as they progressed from like, I'm going to beat you. This guy and his coaches are talking shit. They're talking about wearing overalls into like, oh no, I have to sauna off 26 pounds so I can compete in a different weight class.
Yeah. You know, the other interesting thing is that the USA's trophy is the most plastic, like smallest trophy out of all of the trophies.
Dude, they're trying to take advantage, trying to max out their earnings. That venue wasn't cheap. They charged, what was it, $300 for entry for a reason.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a feeling I wasn't going to win the overall there, but that trophy was massive. I was like, if I win that, how am I going to take that home? How to think it's huge.
The guy who won, holding it looked small because he was just an enormous human
He's
being.
Enormous, yeah.
That guy is like one of my favorite bodybuilders that I've ever seen in person.
Dorian-esque.
He's
not pretty at all. Yeah.
Not just disgusting. A disgusting creature up there, but so fun to look at.
Yeah.
I remember the people sitting next to me when you guys were coming out for the overall pose down. They were like, what the fuck is that guy? Yeah.
Yeah, he's a monster.
For that moment, you were number one up there, but he was number one B for me.
Yeah.
I guess I had a crush on him for a second there. All right, folks, thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening. If you stuck around this long and you haven't hit that thumbs up, the subscribe button, you haven't sent this to your friends and said, hey, this is a great podcast. These guys are really cool. They're funny. They have good takes on life and they enjoy bodybuilding and they're good at it. You should do that. And we'll see you on the next episode. In the meantime, in between times, and as always, stay gifted, my friends. We love you, and goodbye.
Peace.